getting clearer all the time. All we see are all these dead straight lines, and show me what's in reality, and I won't compromise between the truth and lies. This is where I make my stand. Please don't take me to your la-la land. It's all about geometry. All we see is horizontally. Show me what's in reality, and I won't compromise between the truth and lies. Show me what's in reality, and I won't compromise between the truth and lies. Reality is all I see. I don't need your fantasy. I've had enough of sophistry. I'll find my own philosophy. Reality is all I see. I don't need your fantasy. I've had enough of sophistry. I'll find my own philosophy, and you can't bend reality into what you think your cog deceives. Something's happening to me. Don't remind me of how things used to be. We don't need no sycophants. Aren't we all just so sick of that?
And we are live. Welcome everyone. It is Thursday, so Euclid night. Bit of a the shows are turning into more of a conversation, which is I think what we're after. Yesterday was amazing, so in that sort of vein, try and inject a bit of Euclid in, but carrying on with where we were yesterday, this mythology, the hatred of the logic. Well, Euclidean geometry is entirely based upon a logical system, axiomatic system, a perfect axiomatic system. I would say possibly the only perfect axiomatic system that is built on, derived completely upon itself, starting with a point which is that of which is no parts. And nothing starts with nothing, and you end up with all of the geometry that we know derived from that one basic simple fact of logic, derived and proven every step of the way. So that Euclidean geometry, like I say, it's what taught me logic in a roundabout way. And I was brought into Euclidean geometry because some muppet said, well, it's not Euclidean geometry, non-Euclidean geometry, he said. Straight lines curve. Non-Euclidean geometry, which meant absolutely nothing to me. I mean, I suppose those sort of statements that mean nothing are what draw people in, because it's almost as if you don't understand it, but it cannot be understood, but makes you inquisitive to go in and look in there. So from the fact of somebody saying, well, not Euclidean, led me on a journey to basically find out what is Euclidean in order to know what not Euclidean is. I was given the gift of Logos through this journey, through geometry. And some of the realizations that I came to on the journey were eye-opening for me. I didn't imagine to ever have ended up in the position I am now, holding the proofs that I now hold. I didn't have them before. I just had them as a taught thing. Somebody had handed them to me, but give me no explanation, and just said, here, use this is what you do. Now I know much better, because I have a better understanding of the foundations of where we're at. So hopefully, I mean, over in the next whatever, I mean, this is a slow process, so I'll try and maybe give you some of the idea of the comments and stuff that brought me in, and hopefully everybody else will get an idea. I mean, no doubt you've heard these things said by people, like ridiculous statements that just don't seem to mean anything. I mean, a lot of the time I can remember being in this conversation and talking to people and them saying, I don't understand it. What's that mean? When the actual answer to that question is, it cannot be understood. It's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything, and it's only said because a model has dictated that that's what must be said. And that journey in finding out that certain people with certain models have to say certain things, they are confined, they are restricted to the framework of the model that they have. We'll go over a couple of these examples tonight. They're both similar to the same thing, and I guess over the years, right, my introduction was with Fight the Flat Earth, who said straight lines bend. Well, I say my introduction, I would already gone through on Twitter, but actually in a debate scenario where it was one-on-one talking to somebody else, he was the one that said to me that straight lines curve, which is obviously a ridiculous statement. It's a contradictory statement. It's what do you call an oxymoron. It's probably the finest oxymoron you could ever think about. A straight curve, or a curved straight. It doesn't matter whichever way round you think about it. They are two opposites. They cannot be put together in the same sentence. It's what you call an oxymoron. So that's what's built into this conversation. It would be built into the heart of any conversation that you ever have with anybody who is model afflicted. We'll go over a couple of these things. Now, this one is titled Curved Planes, because that curved plane is the extension of the curved straight line that Fight the Flat Earth started off with. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but when you know you're in a cult that has the model dictate to you what you have to say, even if somebody like Fight the Flat Earth says something so ridiculous as spouting an oxymoron within a debate setting to try and, you know, tell everybody what has to happen, they're all in a similar position. They may think he's a bit, you know, says he sounds a bit stupid. He's not quite one of the best spokespeople for the Globe and all of that sort of stuff. But he said the Globe says it. The Globe dictates that's what has to be said. So that's what has to be said. And it's took a few years for this conversation that we've had to sink in. And now I think the Globe side, model affliction, they're confident enough now to start coming out, because the paralogisms have been spread around for a couple of years now. They've been saying that we don't understand stuff, and they've got people like Rumpus that's probably going back to, you know, HQ and saying, yeah, we've done a good job there. We've sorted it out. You know, just leave them alone. Don't talk about it and we'll be fine. So that's where we're at. And let me get a couple of these tweets from yesterday. I wanted to go over this yesterday, but it was such a good day, such a good conversation, that I never got around to it. So I'll get round to these today. Right, 1, 2, 3. Right, these 3. There you go. Right, so I put one minute. May have not gone back far enough. Oh, here we go. Oh, there you go. Right. Right, so this is this is the one. So this is Jonathan Evans. I think he's been on Twitter for quite a while. We've been talking to him, you know, for a few years. There's a group of people on Twitter in a thread that like to come and get involved in this. And this is because Ghetto Fix started to get in, you know, into a conversation, and then this is a reply to him, right? It says, and a level surface doesn't have to be straight and flat. Like a plane can be curved. Well, that got me intrigued, because planes can't be curved. There's obviously something going on here, something involved within the model affliction. Now, this guy's obviously, you know, he's a Globe defender on Twitter. And this is how he has particularly decided to enter into the conversation, to say that a plane can be curved. So I inquire a bit more. So I say, you can't curve a plane without explosive logic. Have you ever heard of misology? Because that was yesterday, obviously, and was preparing for the show. So, you know, just asking him, has he ever heard of misology, the people that hate reasoning, because obviously Euclidean geometry comes with the definition of a plane, and a plane is that which has length and breadth, 2 dimensions. They are perpendicular to each other, these length and breadth. Everybody knows how you measure length and breadth. But so he comes along and says, technically, the entire surface of a sphere is a curved plane. Technically. Which goes along with this model affliction thing, that they think the surface of a sphere is 2-dimensional. And because they think the surface of a sphere is 2-dimensional, they think the surface of a sphere is a curved plane. They think planes can curve. They can't make the break, the mental break, that a 2-dimensional surface of a sphere is entirely conceptual. It's non-Euclidean. It doesn't exist in normal reality. You have to completely separate yourself from what you know a sphere to be once you enter the realm of non-Euclidean. If you're talking about Euclidean space and Euclidean reality that we live in, then a sphere is a ball, and a ball is a solid Euclidean shape that exists within 3 dimensions, not 2. But this is one of the consequences of people hearing other people's paralogisms. And the model dictates that a surface of a sphere must be 2D. They can't get around it. If you have this model, this is what you must go with. So be prepared. You have to detach yourself from reality to go along with this. Now, they've got no idea how this comes around. They've got no idea why the people who've said this have had to say this. We do. I do. We've gone into the foundations of Euclidean geometry. And because of this misology, yeah, that was bad, wasn't it? Because of it, they hate this logical process. They hate this reasoning process. And that reasoning process is wrote into a book that's the foundation of mathematics. Truly, I'm not joking when I say this. Euclid is far more than geometry. It's number. It goes to prime numbers. It does all sorts of things. It's the foundation, literally, the foundation of mathematics as you know mathematics. It's all described within that book. But that book is purely logic. And since these guys with the model affliction hate logic, they hate the reasoning process that derives perpendiculars, that derives triangles having 180 degrees, sum of 2 right angles. All of these proofs. There you go. Thank you. It's good to see that you're listening in, whatever. He doesn't. He literally does not. That's beyond ridiculous.
Whatever is mistaken, because if Euclid was talking about cube, he used words surfaces, not surface. So it means that surfaces of cube are on different planes. So they cannot be in 2D. They are in 3D in total. So this is not true, whatever is saying.
Yeah,
Not
he's been told paralogisms by somebody, WS. Everybody knows who we're talking about, who the loudmouth was that was voicing these ridiculous statements, for all people like whatever to listen to.
And again, whatever is mistaken, again, Euclid does not define a surface as 2D. He is not talking about 2D or whatever D, because he is talking about breadth and length. So not as 2D. When he was talking about, for example, sphere, he was not talking about 2D or 3D or whatever. So it is just not true whatever is saying in chat.
Are you listening in through YouTube, or because the same paper your volume level's low, but it's coming through okay on my audio. So Gadget, are you listening through Discord or through YouTube? Yeah, whatever. There's no point getting into the 2D, 3D conversation. If you understand that a cube is 3D and the surface is a square, it's plane surfaces, that they are 2D, but the cube is 3D. It doesn't make the surface of a sphere 2D. That's really poor reasoning. You can't equate the surface of a sphere to the surfaces of a cube. That's ridiculous.
Yes, surfaces of a cube, they are enclosing 3D space, not 2D space. Surfaces. But with the sphere, we have problem because it is one surface. And if one surface can enclose three-dimensional object, it means that it has to be 3D, not 2D. You cannot enclose 3D object with 2D surface. It is impossible.
With a 2D surface, right? That's ridiculous. And I'm pretty sure he knows that, right? But there's obviously this hatred of reasoning forces him to not look at it. He'll come up with some other ridiculous thing.
And again, he is insisting, but yes, length and breadth, but dimension is length, or this is measurement in one direction, and curved length is not in one direction. So you cannot draw dimension lines on a sphere. It is impossible. You have to have these lines, these coordinate lines outside of the sphere, or just aside, not related to a sphere or surface of the sphere. So these lines, dimensional lines, would be not related to this sphere.
Yeah, there's something going on here, right? Because like we've said, living in reality, obviously everything is 3D. 2 dimensions isn't an actual thing. It's entirely conceptual. But you use the understanding of squares and triangles and circles to help you describe the 3-dimensional reality that you're in. It's an easy way for communication purposes. And plus, it's entirely based within an axiomatic system, a form of proofs, right? It's not a circle and a square and a triangle aren't just shapes that somebody made up. They are geometric figures that are derived from a straight line. Like, once you have the straight line, the distance, the dimension, the one, then you can do an amazing amount of things with that. Because of, obviously, something that's given us that gift. And that gift is the reasoning ability. The amount of things that you can actually do is amazing. And the precision that you can use within this geometric system is undeniable because it's the foundation of mathematics. Now, these guys like to take that foundation of mathematics and then completely disregard it. But imagine that they've progressed. They've progressed by getting rid of the foundations to carry on building, they imagine. It's literally, it's not possible to be able to do that unless you have some sort of a mental break where you separate the foundations of what you know and how you got there through the logical process into a non-logical process that's not logical, not Euclidean, not Aristotelian logic. They've dropped it. They don't like logic. They've got rid of it. And they've left people like Whatever to defend this. Now, Whatever hasn't got a clue. He has no idea how to communicate this thing. Oh, that's it. I've got a video. There's a guy that's made a video about what he thinks about the argument. We'll go over that. That Whatever imagines that he can take a geometric figure that's derived through this Euclidean process, i.e. a sphere, and then translate it back, the three-dimensional thing that's defined in solid geometry, and remove it and place it at the beginning, the foundations, and try and pretend that the plane described in plane geometry, the first 11 books, he wants to put the sphere in there, as a lot of them do. They want to use Euclidean principles, but then try and state that the Euclidean principles don't hold within their new mathematics system, new geometric system. It's ridiculous. We call it a stolen concept fallacy. It's really a self-refuting claim where the original claim gets refuted in the conclusion. Because these guys are diletheists. They can't see a contradiction. Therefore, they can't see the fallacy that they're committing within their logical process because they've had to get rid of logic. And it got worse. See, he's done it here. He's even drawn a picture. Can anybody see within the diagram there or the picture anything that gives his claim away?
This curved plane?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so curved, but this is no longer plane.
Yeah, the grid at the bottom is the plane, right? The two-dimensional square grid. And then he's got a little key. It's got blue, green, and red. 3 They're the 3 dimensions, all perpendicular to each other. It's handy because that's what the axes of a graph are, X, Y, and Z. Everybody can understand that. And as you can see, that plane travels in all 3 of those axes. So you can't have a plane that extends through all 3 axes. It's 3-dimensional. It's not 2. It's not a plane. So to just blatantly state that is very brave move. See, does it looks like a chair, not a plane. And then this is where it gets better. He gives an example. This is fantastic. He says, for example, do you realise, I like the idea of the realising. Now, that's going to come massive, that, right? Do you realise that an aeroplane is called an aeroplane because of the air travelling over the plane of the wing? He missed the G out of the end. Did anybody know that? Does anybody know that? That it's called an airplane because the air travels over the plane of the wing. You know, that curved shape wing.
Yes, so I cannot imagine that. Never imagined that wing of the aeroplane is a plane.
But one side is a plane, but the other side is curved.
It's madness. Yeah, so there you go. Mike's give us a... Let's count the dimensions. 1, 2, 3. There's only 3. There's no room for a 4th one in there. There's just 3 dimensions of space. And that's all that Euclid defines within the elements. He doesn't seem to go anywhere else. It's just a perfect axiomatic system that describes geometry. Now, the geometry that's used in Euclid is the geometry that we use for measuring angles, the geometry we use for trigonometry, right-angled triangles. Maybe you've heard of them. Maybe you've heard of triangles with 180 degrees and 2 triangles coming together with right angles to form a square. Square has equal diagonals, making triangles that have right angles. It's the proofs within geometry are all wrote down in a book, and it's not complicated. If you follow it step by step, it's one of the best learning tools there is, in my opinion, for teaching logic, really. Because in the end, you find that it's not because the book says it. It's because it is. There's no way around it. There's no other way to do these sort of things. This is the perfect way to write down an instruction book for what is. You can't change any of this stuff. You can't really deny it, and you can't rebut it. It just is. In the same vein as what we were going over last night, the logic and the logos, it just is. There's no way to get around it. You can't really argue against logic, because then you would be using the logical process to rebut logic. It's stolen concept fallacy. It's a bit similar to what these guys are trying to do here. They're trying to use Euclidean geometry and the understanding of a plane to say that the plane isn't a plane. Rather ridiculous, really, when you look at it, and how simple this whole thing is. And obviously, the mental torture that these guys must be putting themselves through. All in the aid of a model.
By the way, Sarugaki brought answer why this plane, curved plane, is not a plane, because of book 1 definition 7. A plane superficies is that in which any 2 points being taken, the straight line between them lies wholly in that superficies. It means any 2 points. So you can draw straight line in every direction you want, and you can have it. In that example of curved plane, which is like a cylindric curvature, you can draw straight line, but only in one direction. In other directions, it would be a curved line. So it doesn't
or it wouldn't lie
definition.
within it, right? You could do a straight line, but it wouldn't lie within that, on that surface, right?
Yes, of course.
Has to be a plane.
Yes, so that's any 2 points. You can choose whatever.
Yeah, see, until you hear somebody saying something ridiculous about a curved plane, it doesn't really make sense as to why Euclid uses that definition, right? A plane superficies is that which any 2 points being taken, the straight line between them lies wholly in that superficies, in that plane. And they can't seem to see that, right? Whenever they're trying to talk about what they imagine is their idea of geometry, they conveniently forget about things like that. But you know already, if they have the concept of a curved plane, then by extension, they've got the concept of a curved straight line. They have to.
Yes, they started from a straight line. They started with a curving straight line, and now they are curving a plane. So this is consequent.
Yeah. But the proofs within the geometry are already wrote there, within the definitions, that just prove that's bad reasoning. They're pushing their model into this understanding. Now, whether they've done it to their own exploded mind, the logical system that they have, but them voicing it obviously helps other people. Now, I don't think whatever is bright enough to be able to have come to this conclusion himself. He's just been handed it. They're very good at being handed these things and just regurgitating them like a parrot. And that's what whatever's doing. He's coming in here trying to say, like, oh, you guys don't understand. Well, yeah, we do. There's obviously proofs in there. And Euclid probably had these same similar sort of people. That's why he writes certain things within his he did it within the definitions and the axioms and the postulates. There's some brilliant ones in there that you wouldn't even imagine that they would be in there for any reason until you find out how brilliant it is. But you need people telling you that there are such things as stolen concepts. There's such things as self-refuting claims, fallacies. Because I don't think most people are aware of the in-depthness and how silly this is for people to imagine these things until you try and work them out, until you apply that reasoning process to it. And what you have to do as well, you have to calm the mind first. Step one is calm the mind. Try not to get into sort of heated discussion, and just try and work through the reasoning process from step one, and understand the definitions first, and then work through the propositions of Euclid. It doesn't take you very long for you to be able to understand that this is something special, especially within the arena that we're in. When people try and tell you that you don't understand, the best thing you could possibly do is to go back to the basics and make sure that you do understand. Because I can guarantee you it will make your understanding of the people that try and tell you what they're trying to tell you, the ridiculous stuff, the fallacies, you'll be able to understand them and know why. And I've got a few more tweets. So this is obviously because I'm talking about this now, and if you want to try and bring it out into your own conversations with people, try asking them about these curved planes. Most people don't really understand geometry or anything. It's nothing to be scared of, nothing to be misunderstood. It's just a new way of thinking, because this logical process, it's been taken away. On purpose. So people can not think about logic, because there are people now that, we went over it last night, they hate the logical process. Right, I've got these are the sort of people that I'm talking about, the ones that talk about people in order, rather than talk about the argument. They like to push this sort of a narrative right now. This is Roger Peachy on Twitter. He's one of the Globe fanatics. You may know him as the boy of the farmer. I think that's just a mental state where he still is. He does, and then they're talking about, I don't know, because the guy before this has blocked me, so I can't see what they're saying. But he says it really does make you wonder how these people function and survive in society. And we do all right. Don't worry about us. I thought I'd met some dumb people in my time, but this lot are something else. Think he might be talking about you lot and us here. Because he's never been here and had a conversation with us. He can't. He holds too much hatred, and he likes to express it publicly. And then he's put inbreeding. This is Farmer's Boy. There you go. So he says that, I wonder make you how these people function. And Plato Chips, who's another one of these guys that's absolutely obsessed with me, and I guess us lot, with the argument, this level, horizontal, all horizontals being parallel, the plane of the horizon, all horizontals being parallel to the plane of the horizon. All of these facts of reality that are provable, he doesn't like that. So he rebels by talking like this about people, good people as far as I'm concerned, people that he doesn't know. He's never talked to them. He just hears us talking. He says most are either unemployed or in jobs that don't need any STEM skills, like carers Oh, actually, I bet there are people who use STEM skills. But, often deeply resentful of those who did get a good education. This is him calling other people. Possibly us, but I mean, it could be anybody else. It may be you that he's talking about. He says, I'm amazed how many seem to be carpenters. I've always wondered if it's the effect of solvents in the glue they use. Wood glue, PVA, solvents. So this guy, Plato Chips, who nobody knows, he's never talked to anybody. That's obviously not his real name. Some just ridiculous guy with a character is then saying that carpenters have used low level, and then the boy of the farmer. Everybody knows what qualifications the farmer's boy has. He's always at the height of the debates, and everybody always thinks that he's very clever. He says they're generally in or were in jobs where skills were learned by rote. If anybody doesn't know what rote is, it's just repetition. Mnemonic sort of repetition, rote. Mechanical sort of, like, especially seeing as Plato Chips talked about carpenters. Carpenters definitely don't learn by rote, but hey, he might think that. Obviously, Farmer's Boy has a low opinion of craftsmen. He thinks the low skills. He said they're not engineers, for example, because they don't have problem-solving skills. Well, I beg to differ. Anybody in this Discord server, I challenge you now, right? Farmer's Boy. You and your brilliant skills. Problem-solving.
I would say that every job involves problem solving, because problems occurs everywhere and every day, nearly. So it involves, yes, I would say that in every job.
Farmer's Boy. And it's the way they demean people that they don't know. Like, Farmer's Boy's never been for a conversation. Plato Chips has never been for a conversation. They're scared of it. They hate the discussion. They hate the logical process. So this is one of the ways that they outwardly express that hatred of it, by demeaning people, because then at least then they can keep away. If they think that this is really true, then there's no need for them to come and have the discussion. But they know, really, deep down, they hate it. They hate it because the arguments are so simple, and they would have to use the reasoning process, and the conclusions they would have to come to would destroy their model. So that's why they have to act like this. This is disgusting behaviour, but this is what you should come to expect within this arena. And this sort of attitude comes from everywhere. And it's not inducive to good conversation. It starts you off on a bad foot. This is why there is bad blood within the conversation element of this thing. Because, well, they might imagine that somebody else has done something to them. We haven't. But they obviously think something bad's happened, and this is their lashback. But, I mean, they can't have the conversation. They'll be able to prove that by not coming and having the conversation. Yeah. terrible people, and they know if they were brave enough to come for the conversation, then they'd find out that they were completely wrong about what they think about the people. What they think about other people is it's disgusting. But I mean, that's good. Now we know, because we went over mythology yesterday. These guys hate the reasoning process. They hate the discussion. They hate argumentation. They hate logic. They hate logos. And because of that, it makes it impossible to talk to them. We've known that for quite a while. In the conversations and all of the videos that we've had over the last few years, go back and listen to them again. Maybe with new eyes, new ears. And all we were doing is getting you people, everybody, to hear what these people are willing to say in favour of their model. You can hear them making it up. And we've come so far now that these guys are, they're brave enough to say it outwardly, publicly, impossibilities. They will literally tell you an impossibility is true because it has to be true. And then they'll demean you for not going along with this impossibility. Yeah, good. I'm glad people are getting a grip of this, because the conversation that can't be had anymore is shown because of the people that are in the arena. Let them talk to each other about their impossibilities and how each of them are going to work out how the impossibilities happen in reality. Because these impossibilities can't really happen. There's no such thing as a paradox in reality. Contradictions don't actually exist. Planes are two-dimensional. They are conceptual, but they're used within the understanding of a Euclidean space. The three-dimensional perpendicular planes. I think it's just a way of once you get taught to not logos, you literally have it taken away from you within the schooling system. The learning by rote, you may remember that at school, where you did 1 times 1 is 1. You know, that's what I can remember from school of my age. I lost that, luckily enough. So that's not how I learned particularly. It's funny that Farmer's Boy does that. I mean, I'd love him to come and have a conversation of how his brilliance emerged from his learning, and how he imagines that other people are less than that. People that he doesn't know, people that he's never talked to, people that he knows nothing about. He's willing to defame an entire people. I mean, he is one of the original bigots. Yeah, we've got some of the best people in the thingy. The Count. Is that where's whatever gone? Swap the counts. And yeah, if anybody's looking on the screen, Saragaki's coming up with the amount of things within Euclid that double back to end up proving that a plane isn't curved. Can't be. Literally an impossibility. You wouldn't have mathematics if you started curving planes. The logic system would break down. Yeah, I've always said if you're talking about the, let's call it the scientific method, right? Then people like call it, like, say for instance, a joiner has to find a piece of wood and it needs to fit into that hole. Well, he measures it. He then transfers that measurement to the wood, cuts it, and puts it in the position. Now, does it fit? This is the experiment. If it doesn't fit, then is it too small or too big? And then can you adjust it? Well, only if it's one way, but eventually it fits. So therefore, the experiment of the whole thing finds a conclusion, and you can refine that process. So this sort of thing, for people that are like that, are problem solving all the time, and they are actually going through this logical process where they're refining what they're doing to fit the process even better, to get it more refined. Now, that to me is the true intelligence, right? That's the working intelligence. Now, it will be refined around that one particular job, or you could extend that process to other areas. People like Farmer's Boy, people like Tis I the Count and all of that, imagine that you cannot do that. They have an imagination of something, and that's what they fit in their head. They have no idea that you can refine that process by talking to the person. And so they shut down conversation, whereas the conversation is where we learn from people. Now, if you have no conversation, if there is no discussion, then how can you go through that learning process about anything? Well, we've been asking for quite a long time what sort of method would be used. It seems that there are a group of people that like to talk about other people, but they never like to talk to them. They never like to explain their methods or anything, which is good, fine. Now we understand why they can't have that, because they hate the discussion. They hate the logical process, the reasoning that makes us derive at the similar conclusion. It's just that conclusion that most of us use whenever we use a logical process, they can't come to that conclusion. They're not allowed to. Their model dictates that they have to hate it. And that's why I think people like Farmer's Boy and people like Plato Chips, that's why they hate this group of people. A particular group of people. They are bigoted towards flat earthers. Now, the amount of times that we've said we're not flat earthers, we can prove it's not flat. but they still want to put us in that group so that they can hate on it. And that's because we use logic. Maybe it's that logical process that makes them think it's flat Earth. Or maybe the flat earthers also use logic. I don't know. It's a bit hard to tell. The only way we can find that out is have a discussion. Maybe a debate or two. Come up with arguments, and then we can discuss the arguments, refine them.
I think that flat earthers have arguments against globe, and they had for many years, of course, but it doesn't mean that they have positive proofs for flat Earth.
Well, I mean, I'm guessing sometimes all it takes is a question, because the question can start the reasoning process. In fact, a question, as in with the Elenchus, the Socratic method, that does employ, or it induces the logical thought process. You have to be able to rationalize your statements. Would that sound good? That just came to me. Within the Socratic method, you have to be able to back up what you said, and whenever you make a claim, you have to be able to rationalize your claim.
Yes, it should be done.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that within the questioning of said model, it does induce a logical thought process, right? Now, I don't know whether people realize that the Socratic method and the power of the Socratic method. I know that's why they particularly hate us, because the questions may seem a bit old and lame, but they are done for a reason. And yeah, like maybe that's what these guys hate. It's the idea of the reasoning process that's induced by certain questions or certain arguments, certain things, but it all gets linked back to logic. How can it not get linked to logic? And if they hate logic, hate the logos, hate the argumentation, hate the discussion, then anything will be done to keep away from it. It's like somebody with a phobia, I guess, more of a phobia than a hatred. But I don't know, I guess it showed it's a fear of it.
But still, they are forced to use this logic to refute other logic. So this is it has to be torture.
Yeah, he's the Count's coming back with one of it's a Blue Marble favorite, I think. Blue Marble said this is what you have to do, right? If you're talking to somebody about a surface and then you say it's 2D, and then they say but a sphere is 3D, and you say yeah, but surface, they always ask you how thick it is. What I'm going to start saying is, you mean from one surface to the other? Because a sphere has a surface at each end of the diameter. So therefore it cannot be 2D. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like saying, how 3D is it?
Sorry?
It's like saying, how 3D is it if you ask, how thick is it?
Well, I mean, how far away is one surface from the other? Because there are two surfaces, one at each end of a diameter, and the diameter will cross everywhere at all points. So anywhere where you have a surface, at the other end of the diameter where that surface is, there will be another surface. Now, how can that be 2D? Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally ridiculous. And you can't have a uniform surface to even measure because, as we say, there's mountains and valleys, et cetera. So what surface are you freaking talking about? Now, if you're talking about the surface of a cue ball, that may be a different story. But last I checked, not even Globers are saying we live on a cue ball. Billiard ball, for those of you maybe outside the United States.
For me, simple thing with this 2D or 3D conundrum is that plane cannot enclose a 3D object. One plane. So you have to have several, like in cube. You have to have 6 surfaces, 6 sections of plane squares, but not one. So one plane cannot enclose 3D space. It's simple. So you need 3D surfaces in total, or one surface, curved surface, to enclose a 3-dimensional space. And that would be surface of a ball.
We've had the 2D, 3D conversation many times. We have. I've never heard them have their discussion of how it is. I think they just say, well, it is. Euclid says, but Euclid only says that it's length times breadth in the plane geometry in book 1. It redefines that in book 11, obviously. But they like to take the sphere and place it back in the plane geometry in some strange ritual that they do. It must be a mind-breaking ritual where you take 3D and conceptualize it back into 2D, and then you can imagine that a plane can be the surface of a sphere. It's very strange. But it does lead to, well, it's a necessity for the model. But obviously, because it's a necessity for the model, it has real life, real world implications. Breaking the mind within this geometric understanding has consequences in reality. And this is where we bring in Beddy and F.E. Dogma, the logician and the guy that came up with the twin tangent conundrum of LIGO. The geometric impossibilities have been exposed by F.E. Dogma, but because it's based in logic, reasoning, these guys cannot see it. Part of their ECV won't allow them to see that. So they still worship this guy who's talking about F.E. Dogma. Now, a dogma is the epoche is to release all judgment from anything dogmatic. So this guy is trying to have an idea that the FE has a dogma when he's doing a double play, really. That he's telling all of the Globers what their dogma has to be around their model. And we'll have a go at exposing this. So This is Betty talking to F.E. Dogma around celestial navigation. He says there, thanks. I would not include the stuff about sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, etc. Just that celestial navigation works in this world. This is following on from Betty's logic that he did the other day. Just that celestial navigation works in this world, but I haven't expanded the proof yet. So again, he's going with a proof. Betty is pushing his non sequitur proof for the model, and F.E. Dogma is playing the game with him. I discussed with Bevco last night, 16th of November, and we were still stuck on the definition of valid versus sound argument ad nauseum. And we weren't. We pointed out that you can't have a non sequitur within your antecedent consequent relationship of your if then. Ridiculous. And he should know that. He said, the direction I will take the argument is as follows. So this is an extension from Betty's argument. Assume we know absolutely nothing about the shape of the Earth. Perhaps we even believe it is approximately flat. But we noticed, one, that the sun consistently changes its angle to the horizon at local noon as we move further to the horizon at local noon as we move further to the south. And two, assuming we have an accurate timepiece, we find that the time of local noon changes as well. The time of local noon changes. Noon is not noon. Noon is different than noon.
I think that he said too much, because he shouldn't say in that location, because yes, noon is different in different locations, but not at the same location. Sorry.
He said, then we could devise a coordinate system based on these two observations, calling the first one latitude and the second one longitude. We find that if we find a new small island, we can record its coordinates in this way. And we will also find that these coordinates remain constant through time, meaning we can find a small island again after a year or more using the coordinates to identify it. So that's the first step of the argument, which involves no assumptions about the shape of the Earth. More to come. Anybody want to put forward any questions about Betty's development of his argument? I'll go. All right. He's going to call these two lines, one latitude and one longitude. Now, one of them is a coordinate. I take it these are your two coordinates that you're going to use. One of them is an angle. And the other one is a time. Is everyone all right with that? Time. Time would be a dimension, right?
No, I am not all right, because one of them would be straight line, like, and the other, it would be the path of the sun. It would be a circle.
A timepiece. No, you have a timepiece to find out what time it is. That's what you've got. That's all you've got is a watch that's set to like Greenwich. I know, Betty, you won't mind me pointing that one out. You set it to a time at Greenwich, and then you observe what time the angle is the greatest to the sun. Right, but the other one, the latitude, is a measurement to Polaris. Not really a measurement to the light in the sky. So the light in the sky is one where you measure the time that noon is and how that differs when you set your timepiece to Greenwich. And then the other dimension is the angle of which you... a vertical angle that you observe the star that doesn't move in the sky, the light that doesn't move. So they would be the two dimensions. But in reality, whenever you're dealing with them, they are classed as two straight lines, longitude and latitude, and they are always perpendicular to each other. Just the facts, right?
I don't know if longitude line is a straight line. On Mercator projection, yes, but on other, I think not.
They're
circles.
perpendicular. Yeah, it's been checked out. The master of the navigation, the shorter than a straight line guy, they're perpendicular. Ask anybody. Are longitude and latitude lines where they intersect, are they perpendicular? Also 2D. It's a 2D surface with perpendicular lines on it. I mean, anyone want to disagree? I know what the idea that you have in your head is you're imagining something that it just isn't. Tis I the Count thinks we're all in an echo chamber. I'm just posing the question to everybody now. Latitude and longitude lines, where they intersect, are they perpendicular? And if they are perpendicular, then them being on a two-dimensional surface would make very good sense. It's one of the things that people, I don't think, have actually thought about that much up till now. Because one of them is supposed to be parallels as well, aren't they?
But if the longitude lines are circles, like bigger and bigger, they will not intersect also.
How can they be circles? They're perpendicular, aren't they? Maybe you've been fooled by what you have seen, but knowing geometry and mathematics as you do, could you go against the geometry because you've seen something that might have been put there to fool you, right? Could you be fooled by the magic trick that overrides the geometric understanding of what you're dealing with?
But distance between these lines from Polaris, so it is described as angle. So it has to be described on the circle. Also, it is measured and it is described as angle by degrees.
Yeah, vertical. So, it's a vertical angle, isn't it?
No, this lines, latitude lines are line intersecting this longitude lines are distance between them is described by angle. That would, for me, that would be making these lines concentric, like diameters, and longitude lines as circles. So that, because I cannot explain why they are expressed and described in angles. That there is angle between one latitude line and other latitude line, and this distance is described in angle.
No. The distance is measured by a linear line, right? The mile or whatever. That's a distance. The angle is just measured as a vertical angle, and that's the only thing that denotes the latitude is that angle. That's,
no, I'm talking about like a map. So that's on the map we have lines, longitude lines and latitude lines, and distance between latitude lines are described in angles. So the distance between one line and next line is certain degrees. So that's my question, why they are described in that way. Maybe someone can explain me to that, but this is something I cannot cope with perpendicularity here.
well, yeah. The line that you draw down is just a relationship of an angular relationship to the light in the sky. So it's the position you're at. I mean, we went through this a bit ago. The only measurement that you could actually make in reality, right, is obviously you can work a distance from A to B. But in order to make sure that that's the shortest distance from A to B, you need to make sure that it is a horizontal. Because if it's not horizontal, then you are in fact making a hypotenuse, a longer side. So therefore it won't be the shortest distance. So in reality, the only way you can measure a distance and the shortest distance is along a horizontal. So you can obviously do that. Now, you can do that on land and be sure of what you're doing, because there's methods to make sure it's straight, and there's methods to make sure it's a horizontal distance and not a slope. And then the other measurement is to the light in the sky that doesn't move. There's nothing else you can do, but you can, if you can measure that distance on the land, and then you can make a note that if you move a certain distance, when you measure an angle to the light in the sky, it changes by, let's say, 1 degree of that measurement to the light in the sky. Then you have some sort of an understanding that this relationship of light in the sky, you move horizontally a distance, light in the sky either drops or raises if you move in this certain direction, either away or towards that light in the sky. I mean, they are facts that can be known. What it does mean is that there is a linear relationship between that. For every 1 mile, every 69 miles, the angle to that light in the sky will drop 1 degree. you move another 69 miles horizontally, the measurement of the angle to that light in the sky will change by 1 degree. And that's a linear relationship. It will always happen. They're the only things you can do. Now, how do you relate all of those together? Not got a clue. I live in the UK. We don't have that longitude, latitude. I mean, that relationship can be known. But in order to actually measure the land, they use a grid system, squares.
Yes, I would agree, because on small area, it is more accurate to do that. But on bigger scale, I think that would be a problem, because if is not if, because we know that Polaris is a point, so it makes different latitude lines. They have to be concentric, because they are going into one point, and we know that all celestial bodies are rotating around that star. So that's why it is described as concentric lines. And also sun is making path around Polaris. So it is a circle. So this
What tells you it's a circle? See, because to me, when you think of this, you think, well, okay, if it's a circle and I'm looking that way at it and I'm calling that north, then somebody on the other side of that will be looking back at me, actually the opposite direction, looking up at the light in the sky and saying that's north. That doesn't make any sense. That's illogical to think that. In my mind, right?
Wait, but there are people who live, for example, on equator, and let's say behind, on the other side of equator than we live, and they, if they have noon, they are looking north. I think.
I don't know. I couldn't say. Like, in order for me to have that, right, and move away from Epoch A, I would have to go there and see that at 90 degrees directly above my head. And I have to be able to go one side of it and then look that way and say that's north. And then go the other side of it and look the opposite way and say that's north here. That point, right, if you can stand at that point underneath it, then north disappears. Every direction is south. That to me sounds ridiculous. You can go to a place where there is no north. Nah, I'm not having that. Every direction is south. That sounds very globe to me.
Globe, not it is just a circle. Circle is not a globe, but still I have conundrum, because definitely Polaris is a point, and I would say that the sun is making circles, and it is provable, because there is footage, many footage from places on the north when people can experience 24-hour day. So they can, they are rotating camera, and they are seeing, they are making circles with camera to make that footage. It means that the sun is making circle. For me, this is the proof that the sun is making circle, because people just can picture it, can photograph that, or make 24-hour film with the sun on the screen. So it would be impossible if the sun was not making circle. That's my my take on that.
Yeah.
Why I think that it has to be that way, because or maybe this footage is fake, I don't know. But if this footage is not fake, and we have a place where and the people are living there where they can make that footage, and this footage is not fake, for me this is proof that the sun is making circles.
Yeah, it wasn't about the sun making circles. The latitude is the light in the sky, the one that doesn't move. The sun, right, is noon. That's the timing of the time. That has no relationship to the other one, right? It's one of the dimensions within their narrative. Time that the big light comes at its highest point in the sky. The latitude is the angle to the other light in the sky. There's two different lights of the sky here that's involved in this.
I would say that this is linked to so-called azimuthal equidistant map, but there are many problems with that. So because it is hard to depict real size of, let's say, continents or isles or whatever, because it doesn't match measurements in a Cartesian grid. So
yeah, the actual measurements of the land can be done, right? And all of those measurements would be done with linear, straight line, horizontals, mapped normally on a grid coordinate system, right? The problem comes is when you move off the land into the water, you can't measure that distance. Tides,
yes,
currents, all sorts of things. So that's where you then have to employ this light in the sky measurement to give you some sort of an idea in relation to those two lights where you actually are in relation to the other bit of land that you've just been on. And that's all you can do, really. Now, no doubt people will say that they could do many others, but I'm thinking back to the time when people were in boats, right? Not when people are imagining nowadays that they've got all sorts of silly methods about measuring. But you still, I don't think you still can measure across water. And even with an airplane can't measure a distance. It can measure a time that it took and the amount of fuel that it took to burn. And you can average it over time. But, I mean, how do you know a distance?
only by speed, if you know your speed. But it would be approximation according to...
Yeah, you don't know how
planes.
fast the air's moving, do you? And in what direction that air's moving. So your speed would be relative to the medium that you're going in. And since we know that there's air currents, like there's water currents, you can't really measure your relationship to you know, like it's just difficult anyway.
Yes, on the in the water back in the day they used I think it is called in English knots, measuring knots.
Yeah,
but it is not very accurate measurement of the speed.
Well, if the water was going with the current as well, I mean, you'd have to fix it to an anchor or something in order to get the knots. Otherwise, it doesn't. Yeah, there's problems, but that's not really what we want to go into. It's just the fact that Bede's trying to make an argument around these two dimensions, one of them being time, as he mentions. He says,
Yes, that's
go on.
not nonsense for me.
Yeah. Right. So FE Dogma says, knowing that group, the definition of valid versus sound arguments will go on ad nauseum, since they specialize in playing word games. So what he's doing here is he's setting up a narrative of what they want. Bede's injecting this valid versus sound argument into an argument discussion, and in order for us to stop talking about the actual argument, Bede wants us to discuss valid and sound. It's just a way to confuse people. It's just part of Bede's sophistry, and we won't be playing that game, Bede. It's ridiculous. When the argument is good and you've checked you minded your P's and Q's, you will find out whether it is a truth statement or not. It's no good to start talking about valid and sound, especially when you have a concept where you can have a contradiction being a valid argument. It's so ridiculous. So he says, although they're pretty good at it, we're pretty good at it, quoting Euclidean postulates and axioms, they seem to have a real mental block in applying geometric principles to the real world, since this would be using geometry to model and explain an observation. How could such a knowledgeable, he puts it in inverted commas, group allow themselves to be afflicted with a model? He thinks Euclidean geometry and logic is a model that you would be afflicted by. It's interesting. Good luck. Obviously, the geometry that works for celestial navigation is based on the shape of the Earth.
No, it isn't.
You think the geometry is based on the shape of the Earth? Shape of the Earth geometry, that's what they're using. No such thing. Like, that just shows you how fucking ridiculous this dude is. Don't forget, this is the dogma that they have to follow. So a lot of people will be using this because he is the guy that sets the dogma for everyone on the globe side. So get ready. You'll hear these arguments coming from other people. So this argument for celestial navigation is based on the shape of the Earth. So now you need to make a hypothetical model to test it. But then you are assuming a shape. Yada, 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 ad nauseum, of course. They do admit that they are trying to realize Euclid. So maybe one day they will have their eureka moment and the light bulb in their head finally lights up. They do admit that they are trying to realize Euclid. Yes. I'm trying to get other people to realize Euclid too.
I would say that surveyors are realizing Euclid every day in their work. And
Yes.
so they are measuring the Earth, and they are doing this according to Euclidean principles, and not because the Earth has shape. So it has nothing to do with shape of the Earth, because this is, let's say, system of measurement or method of measurement based on Euclid. And
straight line, right?
Yes.
Don't forget this, that the Euclid idea, Euclidean geometry, is that a straight line is straight. That's it. The things that you can do once you know that, and you can put a unit length to it, a 1, then you can do all sorts of things. But it is based upon that straight line being straight.
Yes, it proves that it has nothing to do with shape of the earth, because Euclid knew that the earth is not flat and not straight, because he lived around mountains, valleys, etc. So that was not about shape of the earth, and he was not measuring shape of the earth, but just distances. So as normal geometer and surveyors do.
Yeah, and
So
the
they are
horizontal straight line distance being the shortest distance is both provable within geometry, but a natural consequence of the Euclidean method. The
Yes.
Euclidean method describes reality perfectly in a logical way.
Yes, and you can measure it, because this is so geometry is measuring. So you can measure anything, and Earth also, using these principles, and your measurement would be accurate and certain. So that's simple.
Yeah, you could triangulate, you could check positions, you could do that from any other place, and it would remain true. Geometry is geometry because it's provable and true.
Yes, true, not sound. I hate that word.
Yeah.
They are constantly replacing word true with a sound.
Yeah.
So
Well, since truth is part of the logical process, right? It's the conclusion that you come to when you have that truth. They hate it.
yes, so they hate truth, and that's why they replace word truth with sound.
Yeah. Yeah, we're on to you, Betty. Useless tactics don't work. And then so Betty replies back to F.E. Dogma. He says, I'm thinking that you could work a celestial navigation under the assumption of a level Earth for some time, until the point you discover that the coordinates define a geometrically closed surface, i.e., lines of latitude converge at the north and the south poles. However, I remember mentioning the convergence effect to one of them a while ago, and while they accepted it, they couldn't see the implications of it. I was thinking of popping in tonight, but on second thoughts, I will just have a beer and watch an old film. I don't know whether he was thinking of popping into Blue Marble Sciences or popping in here. I'd say having your beers, Betty, because this will be really hard for you to justify these things that you've come up with. Especially as you seem to be up against Euclidean geometry or some sort of stolen concept idea where you think you can use Euclidean geometry to deny Euclidean geometry, because Euclidean geometry doesn't use timepieces within any of its measurement things. So I don't know whether latitude and longitude would work within Euclidean geometry, but I'll put it to everybody. Assuming that one of these lines isn't based on time and it is an actual line, do or are the intersection points of longitude and latitude, are they considered perpendicular? geometrically.
You're asking me?
Well, I'm just asking anybody, right? To the people that are going to be listening to us and the people that are going to be commenting. Just that's all you need to ask yourself. Are they perpendicular? Because Betty seems to think something about converging, and people didn't know the implications of it. So I'm guessing it's a return question to Betty, that are the longitude and latitude lines where they intersect, are they perpendicular? And do you know what the implications of perpendicularity is? See, whatever's saying times for longitude. So longitude is a time measurement, therefore definitely not Euclidean. So you can't use any geometric understanding when one of them is for time. So don't be fooled, anyone. If you're ever talking to anybody and they start to try and say that this is two-dimensional, just point out to them that time isn't a dimension. And also an angle isn't another dimension. So for measurement purposes and for relating to geometry, you cannot use time and angles. It won't work. That's not what a dimension is within geometry. It's just like a vector, straight line. See, somebody else says latitudes and longitudes are both angular measurements. Seems to be a little bit of confusion going on. Maybe they're not measurements.
If this 69 miles, that would be measurement. You can measure distance.
Yeah, on land, yes. You can measure
land,
it,
yes.
and that relationship does stand. Yes. It's also why they divided a degree up into minutes and seconds, strangely enough. And 60 make it a minute into a mile, right? 60 nautical miles. Yeah, they changed the nautical mile so they could have minutes and seconds within the division of a degree. Very clever. You just change your measurement method to an actual linear distance, and then you transfer it over. It's a brilliant magic trick. And then the next magic trick is to equate that to some sort of geometry. And confuse people when you're talking about 2 dimensions. Because they're not the similar X and Y 2 dimensions that you would imagine of a plane.
No, dimensions are perpendicular to each other. They have to be. So
Yeah. And
if you are
time
measuring-
isn't perpendicular to an angle.
Absolutely. So that's why I think that this is not perpendicular, because this is based. You can derive distance from on the land, measuring the angle drop of the angle, apparent drop of the angle of the star. But yes, it has nothing to do with geometry. So
whatever's pointing out there that the time difference between local time to Greenwich Mean Time provides the longitude. So therefore, that's not a dimension. Whatever. You can't be equating longitude and latitude to 2 dimensions, and then say one of those dimensions is a time. It's like, that's illogical reasoning. It doesn't fit for you to equate the two together. Just shows how you've been fooled into a model thinking. Sorry, go on.
Because if you are can measure this distance according to drop of the angle of Polaris over horizon, you can say that you are at some position or distance, and if you are going to the other place and you have the same angle, you are just at the same location but at the different time. So these lines are depicting rather position in time, not location, physical location. So for me, it does not fit what we understand as dimension, because dimension is size of something which is already there is not, we are not measuring motion or movement, because if we are talking about time, we are talking about movement. So that would be not dimension in a normal sense. So because moving object would change dimension. If for example we are measuring a box and this box is moving, we will have this very strange measurement of escaping box from us. So it doesn't make any sense for me. Mixing motion with dimension in normal sense.
Oh, Larry's here. Wow, look at this. We've been honoured. Well, welcome back, Larry. Like, look at what Larry said. He must have heard what I was talking about earlier. Larry says, on a plane and using right angle triangles, and an angle change to Polaris of 69 miles per degree, the calculated altitude of Polaris decreases the further you travel from the pole. Explain. I think we just did. You move further away from it, it decreases 1 degree. What does need explaining? Yeah, you've done surveying, Larry. Have you?
It is normal thing that objects moving parallel, for example, to horizontal, and but above us, they will go down in our vision. So this drop of the star, which is measured in angles, is just optical drop. This is perspective only. So according to optics. So this is optical drop.
Yeah, that's definitely right, that, Larry. I mean, it's measured, right? It is measured. You say 69 miles, and that would be a horizontal distance travelled, the shortest distance, 69 miles. And the angle would be measured at each end of that 69 miles. It's pretty obvious. That can actually be done. That's a real life thing that can be done. Now, why are you measuring angles to the lights in the sky? Don't know. You've just measured the land, 69 miles. So you know you're 69 miles further away from the place you were at. I presume you know the direction that you were going, and make sure it's a straight line. So it's a straight line of 69 miles. Call that your baseline. Make all of the other measurements, triangulate from that, and you will know where every point of the land is in relation to every other point of the land. You can then point in a direction and say that one's north, if you want. That way's east, that way's west, and that way's south. And you would have all of the lines within the grid system pointing north, south, east, or west, right? Everybody knows how that system works. But again, there's a mental block. Because when everybody thinks of that, you think, oh, well, that can't happen. North, south is a straight line. East and west is a straight line. Are they perpendicular to each other? Or are one of them or two of them circles? You have the same problem with longitude and latitude as you have with north, south, east and west.
I would say that in the in location when we are, even if I can see that the sun is have curved path, I can point to point from sunrise to sunset. Of course, I can draw a straight line, so this is not a problem. So that would be that would make these lines perpendicular. Yes.
Oh, see you later, Larry. I know it'd be painful. You're best off being out of here. Don't listen, Larry, in the background. Don't worry about it. Larry thinks we've got a mental block somewhere.
So he was not responding to any point. He didn't address anything. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Yeah, it's safer that you're not here. We know what happens to people that access a little bit of logic. It can be tough. It can be tough for a model mind, the exploded mind, to even sniff a little bit of logic. But I mean, you've got to admit, everybody has this problem. North, south, east and west are the same as longitude, latitude. Where they intersect, always perpendicular. That perpendicular relationship means straight lines. Straight lines have implications of perpendicularity and parallelness. Parallel has a definition that means all norths, if they're perpendicular to east-west, they'll all be parallel. But you can't have that if one of them or both of those lines are circles. And if they're circles, then they can't be straight. And if they can't be straight, then they're definitely not perpendicular. But you've got a bit of a conundrum going on. The moment you access geometry and Euclidean geometry into anything to do with reality, you're going to come up against these, I call them paradoxes. That's why it's tough for the mind to take. People don't like to have these thoughts, I'm guessing. It becomes hard to justify, doesn't it? Even having the circle. It was a question that we asked. North, south, east and west, two straight lines. How many of them are circles?
On the globe model, they are all circles, but these latitude lines are all great circles. But longitude lines are only on equator.
No. North, south, east, west. Forget about longitude and latitude. Just do north, south, east, west. Globe model.
On the globe model, there are all circles, so
Again.
they cannot be parallel,
Right.
of course.
What about on the flat Earth model? Well, let's say azimuthal equidistant.
On the azimuthal equidistant map, latitude lines would be radii or diameters. From in the center, it would be Polaris position, and longitude lines, they are circles.
No, it's the other way around, isn't it? Latitude is the circle, the east-west.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so that would be a circle on the azimuthal equidistant.
Yes,
whereas the north-south would be a straight line.
Yes,
So
straight lines.
that couldn't be perpendicular either. So either of the models, either the globe model or the azimuthal equidistant model, would have to have at least one curved line in between the north, south, east and west, thus making it not a chance of it being perpendicular.
Yes, of course, yes. But they are based on, let's say, on celestial body like Polaris, as fixed. So this is, it is estimated as center point from which these lines are coming out, like radii from the center of the circle. Just it. But it has nothing to do with the measurement of distances on the Earth. So this is not because of measurements of some distances of the Earth. This is measured only by motion of or not motion of celestial bodies. So like Polaris or Sun and the Moon or whatever. So that's it. It's not about measuring the Earth. Absolutely.
Yeah, so really, latitude and longitude, both some sort of measurement of lights in the sky.
Yes, generally yes. But this one with Polaris, we can relate this to measurement on the ground because we can do that. But this is only about optical drop. I would say that this information is not very, very useful. But yes, we can do that. We can translate this one angle of drop, visual drop, into 69 miles. So what? Yes, all right.
Gently's channel, welcome back, Gently. He says north, south, east, west is more to do with magnetic fields, though, right? I don't know. You saying that Polaris has got to do with magnetic fields? Light in the sky?
I don't think so, but this is not my cup of tea.
Wow. That's, I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I'd say a compass does that, but I mean, that we're talking about Polaris, not a compass. Interesting, though. I mean, I always thought they were like directions, which I would class as a dimension. I personally would class north, south, east and west being on the azimuthal, and that being the two perpendicular dimensions of the horizontal plane. That's the way I would imagine the north, south, east, west on the azimuthal. As you know, like everybody, if you know anything about surveying, particularly within the telescope guys, right, then they set up their telescope and they place it on the azimuthal plane, they level it off, And then the first measurement they take is from north, and they go clockwise with the angle on the horizontal plane, the azimuthal plane. That's the first angular measurement they take. And then they take the vertical angle as the incline. So one angle on the azimuthal plane. Now, that's north, south, east, and west. That's your turn on the azimuthal plane. I would say that's very like a geometric plane, not a magnetic thing, gently. So yeah, definitely I would call the north, south, east, and west more geometric than magnetic.
Yeah, aren't they cardinal directions anyway? Isn't that what they're called?
Well, like a
Or am I
dimension, right?
mistaken? Yeah. That's what I mean. Because
Yeah,
there is a perpendicularity to those, at least on every map I've looked at where it says north, south, east, west.
I would say so. But like we've just explained, not the globe map or the equidistant azimuthal thing.
No,
They
definitely
can't
not.
have perpendicularity within them. That would be a lie for them to mention perpendicularity of north, south, east, and west, because
Correct.
that's not what happens on those models. So it would appear sort of a catch-22 for you to mention north, south, east, and west being a perpendicular relationship. You would have to deny the model that you think you're working on, both particularly on the globe. But hey, you sort your own logical system out how to make that the numbers balance for that one. I don't know what else I've got really. It's gone till 10 though. I think we did that. Oh, Blue Marble has joined in with the guys that are calling into question my land surveying certificate. The orientating to the magnetic field is on a horizontal plane, gently. Sure. That seems to go against what I've been hearing. But I mean, it does go along with some of the stuff I've got. Let me see if I can find that while we're here. I think that I do have a thing on the magnetic. There you go. This one says magnetic declination or magnetic variation is the angle on the horizontal plane between magnetic north, the direction of north end of the magnetized compass needle points corresponding to the direction of Earth's magnetic field lines, and true north, the direction along a meridian towards the geographic North Pole. This angle varies depending on position on the Earth's surface and changes over time. But that's an angle for the on the horizontal plane. Gently, is that the horizontal plane with the magnetic that we're talking about? Because I mean, like I said, I called it the azimuthal plane, but I mean, if you want to call it like this one Wikipedia does here, a horizontal plane, then it would seem to think that the north, south, east, and west could be perpendicular on a horizontal plane. But that perpendicularity would
Yeah, it would go away. Otherwise.
Gently's channel says cardinal directions are based on the orientation of the magnetic field. Nothing would stop the North Pole being on the equator. What does that mean? Is that just a nonsense statement?
Strange to me. Every cardinal direction I've ever seen documented has been a perpendicular.
Yeah. Nothing would stop the North Pole being on the equator. So you basically, I think what Gently's saying is you can put a North Pole wherever you want.
And call that north.
Yeah.
I guess you could do, I mean, I suppose you could do whatever the hell you want.
And he says you cannot have a planar field. Even though that's what it says there. It says the magnetic declination or magnetic variation is the angle on the horizontal plane. They must have got it wrong, Gently. You best start going and helping them rewrite this. Or,
Yeah, somebody will fix
or
it.
you're just talking shit, Gently. That goes blatantly against known rational thought, known reasoning, known geometric principles. You're just going against it and saying, no, you can't have that.
You don't think he's a misologist, do you?
It must be.
Because it sounds an awful lot like that's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why it sort of is becoming like gaslighting now. And I sort of feel sorry for him. Because you know that they have to say this sort of stuff. But they're exposing themselves as sophist gaslighters that are just going against known logic. With no understanding of what they're going to replace this with. The perpendicularity of straight lines, north, south, east and west. The angle between the plane and the field. No. It says, is the angle on the horizontal plane? Gently. The angle on the horizontal plane, not between the plane and the field. But I mean, if that's what you want to think you can see, that's good for us to know, right? You're blatantly delusional, Gently. You're not even reading what it says. But thanks for helping. Gently, you've been drinking. I mean, come on.
He's waiting for the miss. He said he's waiting
Yeah.
for the misses to come home from the gym. He may have had one too many. Yeah.
That's shocking,
The
Gently.
North Pole could be in Antarctica, for fuck's sake.
Wow.
It gets good.
Could be. And can you imagine what the mind must be like to be able to comprehend these things? Because that's an impressive thing to be able to do. To be able to imagine something and then imagine that could still be true. Just because you can think it. There are certain things that we can go with north. I think I said there are 3. You've got the light in the sky that doesn't move. You've got the sun rising and setting, and then the perpendicularity between that as being north-south. And then you've got a compass. But the compass, like it says there, changes when you move. The light, the sun, rises and sets in different positions, so that changes north-south whenever you're dealing with that. The only one that doesn't really move is the light in the sky.
Yep.
So which one are you going to choose for north of those three? Gently seems to have gone with the magnetic one. But I don't know whether he's relating that one to the wobbling, moving magnetic field that he keeps talking about, or the light in the sky that doesn't move. Because that's a contradiction again. North either moves or it doesn't move.
Always Polaris was called by mariners North Star. This is called North Star. So that's so it means that this point is north for mariners, at least, or sailors. So if they were looking at the Polaris, they were looking at north. So simple. And because Polaris doesn't move, it means that they were looking at the same point, in the same location.
Yes. Geometric understanding of this. Right. So the geometric understanding of these straight lines obviously goes to Euclidean understanding, but asking these questions of people that are obvious geniuses within this understanding of cardinal directions are going to try and tell us, well, I don't know what they are telling us. Maybe they'll end up telling us that we don't really understand what north is, south, east and west, whether they're straight lines or not. Maybe we are meant to think that they're straight lines but know that they're not. Or whether you're not meant to know it at all and just go about oblivious to these facts. That there may be a massive contradiction there that you just meant to forget about. Mobius is having problems with whatever. Existential cognitive veiling will always apply when dealing with conversations and questions, for the reasons we said earlier. That you phrase your questions in the Elenchus form. They get nervous. Yeah, we've been over this for a few times. The old north, south, east, west conundrum. It's a good thought exercise. Try thinking a bit. Let me have a look, see if I've got anything else. Yeah, I'll have a quick look on YouTube, because you never know. Betty might have... No. Oh, yeah, that was what I've got a video, haven't I? Right, okie dokie. So we've got a new guy. I think we featured him earlier in the week. Let me see if I can get that thing up for him. He calls himself Anti-Globe. You might have recognised. But he's apparently we've got a new YouTuber. Oh, anti-psychopath. I wonder if that's him. Might have changed his name. There we go. Right, so this this guy calls himself anti-psychopath, but maybe anti-globe. Changed his name to. And it was all about the argument. All horizontal planes are parallel to one another. Conclusion. He says, no, your premise is false. Horizontal isn't a straight line. This guy, you know who he is. It's an arc of a circle, so the horizontals not being parallel. It's a slop argument from a slop mind. Remember this. Well, let me get this. So you guys can see that. And
Yes, I can see.
Right now, this guy, try thinking, anti-globe. I don't know if that guy is this one, but surely there's more than that. It's got two views, right? So I'll put this share copy if anybody wants to give this guy a view. He's a new YouTuber. Can somebody drop that in the YouTube chat for us? And right, I'm gonna.
I have a question.
Go on.
I'm just wondering. So, are you saying that a compass isn't really a compass?
No, it does north, south, east, and west.
I guess, but yeah, I'm still confused because it shows circles on a compass. Maybe I missed something.
You mean the needle?
No, the needle is a straight line and it points north.
Yeah,
but yeah. So are we like promoting like Pac-Man Earth?
no.
Just because if you keep going west, you will end up where you started.
Have you ever done that?
No, but we can agree that if you did, technically, you'd have to come back to where you started. East or
I'm
west.
not going to agree with that.
Well, I can't agree with that because that would mean east and west is a circle that returns back on itself, and straight lines don't do that. So that has to be a circle. Therefore, north, south, east, and west cannot be perpendicular if you go with what you've just said.
No, but I understand. But we have let's call them waypoints on Earth, right? And they use compasses to navigate Earth. So if you just kept going west, you're saying that you wouldn't end up back where you are. You'd end up somewhere else.
I've never done it.
No, I know. But I'm just trying.
Sounds like a hypothetical. I mean,
well, no, not really.
Who's done it?
People do fly. People do fly all the time. Like, I'm not trying to be a contrarian with it. I'm just trying to understand.
I wouldn't know.
Like
we do navigate. Like,
you would.
With
it just sounds like your claim. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, as far as I would know,
yeah.
Right, in order to verify that, you would need to be able to stand in a place where you could not find either north or south.
Well, no, they're relative to east and west as well. Like all four cardinal directions are all four cardinal directions.
Yeah, but if you stand in
And they're based
north
off of a
or
compass.
south, there is a position where north and south disappear. There is only
Are you sure?
south. Yeah, well, on the model, right?
Where?
What you're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm
Oh.
talking about. Either I'm not talking about any model. I'm talking about in the real world, we use the compass to get places.
Yeah.
And let's call these waypoints like cities. Either model in reality is gonna work with a compass. Because the compass works.
Mm-hmm.
And if I started taking flights and I just kept traveling west on a flight, I could get back to where I started, hypothetically, on either model. In reality, with a compass.
Well, on the model
And
or in reality?
and
Make your mind
in
up.
reality, on a coordinate system. No. If we want to call it a false dichotomy, fine. I'm trying to understand how the compass uses straight lines and circles. And then we want to talk about they're just perpendicular. I'm just confused as all fuck right now. That's all.
Yeah, it
I'm not
does.
trying to justify one
yeah.
or the other.
It'll always confuse everybody because north, south, east and west are perpendicular. But the very geometric fact of them being perpendicular means that they're straight lines. And if they're straight lines, they're not circles. But that causes the conflict, right? That's why you're struggling with it, because somebody has told you something different than they are straight lines, but they've never really told you that they're not straight lines.
But I'm not going based off of what anybody has told me. I'm going based off of the false dichotomy models. Both models use a compass, and in reality, that compass works on both models.
For me, conundrum is that the sun is, as far as I know, is making circles. So if sun is making circle, it means that yes, that would imply that going from south from east to west along with the sun, the path of the sun, you will end at the starting point, because if the sun is making circle and you are going with the sun, it is obvious that you will end on the starting point, because you will make circle. For me, this is logical, what I am saying, if the sun is making circle. So that's why I cannot cope with perpendicular south and not perpendicular being straight line west to east, because if you have points when the sun is rising at your location, you can draw straight line, yes, but it doesn't mean that the sun is going in straight line. And the sun is every day is appearing at the same location at sunrise and at sunsets. So for me, it implies that this is making circle, because the sun is returning to its starting point at the horizon. So
I have to disagree right there. Hang on, paper. I just have to disagree because it processes every day.
Yes, I am not talking about that this is going from tropic to tropic. I am not talking about that. but
Okay, as long as we're understanding.
generally, if it every day rises at the same, roughly at the same location or at the same direction, and sets at the same direction, it means that it has to go in circular way for me. And footage like from I would it was, I think, Anchorage on Alaska or whatever on the north. It is showing there are 24-hour days in some places on the north. So and you can see, or some, I think that people living there can see 24-hour sun making circle. So and
Yeah.
I cannot go against common notion. That's my objection, that I cannot go against common notion. So that's why I cannot cope this perpendicularity of the general on the whole Earth, that these lines would be straight lines. So because it implies that the sun is making straight line, which is not what we observe. That's my conundrum, that I cannot cope that for now. So if is someone who can explain me that conundrum, I would gladly take that help. But now I cannot cope that.
It's a good one, isn't it? Something that you never really imagined until somebody points it out, and it's so obvious that there's a conundrum there.
Conundrum is with east-west being a straight line. It is, for me, in that location where I live, it is straight line. I can draw straight line from point where the sun is rising and the sun is setting. But it doesn't mean that that the sun's path is straight line, because in that case my line from east to west would be like chord line on the path of the sun. So that's it. I cannot explain that for now better. But
yeah, I've got a video I'll show you in the net, you know, after, once we go offline.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Hey Bev, I'd like to be a part of that, so I was hoping you could maybe do it later, like maybe around 5 o'clock my time, because I can't really watch. I got breaks to do. You know how it is.
Yeah. Got to get your time away from staring at brake pads.
Yeah, it's 2:30 right now, my time.
2.5 hours. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll be around. We'll get
Perfect.
into that. Right. So we'll get on to that video in a bit. But Mike's just put that Betty. And now this explains how Betty, the globe logician, the proofless globe logician, frantic bunny is. So Mike says, enjoy the sophistry of the validity of if yes implies no, yes, therefore no, while you're drinking your beer. It's just as sound as your valid argument about stars in the sky somehow implying a ball underneath your feet. To which Eddie replies, correct, perfectly valid. You're learning. So I'll say that again. If yes implies no, yes, therefore no. literally
it
a
is-
contradiction in terms, right? He's laid
Yes.
a contradiction out as an argument, and Beddy is saying yes, that's valid.
in his logic, but not in the Aristotelian logic. Of
It's
course.
not in any logic. Come on,
Yeah,
you
I was
can't
just gonna
have a
say it's not in any
contradiction in
logic.
logic.
Yes, yes. So it is impossible.
Yeah.
And it is not valid. It means that this is formally invalid because having contradiction in terms is formal fallacy. Formal fallacy. So it is invalid. When you hold contradiction in terms, it is invalid ipso facto. So I don't know why Baby is talking about that this is valid. No, it is not.
Because he wants to push the globe logic, right? The globe non-logic, as though it's some sort of logic. And Beddy being the globe, the proofless globe logician, has to sort of tell everybody else who's on the globe side, obvious misogynists, misologists, obvious that they are scared of logic. There's only Beddy that can go there and start talking about this logic, but in a ridiculous, contradictory way. He's trying to imply a contradiction into a logical, valid statement within globe logic. This is the biggest gaslighting that he could be doing. Now, he's not gaslighting us, but the people on the other side, the ones that hate logic, they'll like this logic, this not logic, non-logic that Beddy's doing, globe logic, right? It's not actual logic because he's building contradictions into his arguments. They're not arguments.
Yeah, what it does is it allows him or anyone to be able to claim a valid logical argument without it being a valid logical argument. Because a truly valid logical argument has a sound basis in logic or fact, and it's reasonable or cogent. That's a dictionary definition of valid as it relates to an argument or a point. But somehow modern logicians have determined that, hey, if we just provide the framework, then we can say that that's valid, even though the logic within it is completely unsound, therefore making the entire logical statement invalid.
Don't forget about the law of non-contradiction.
Absolutely.
Right? It means you can't do it. You can't build an argument around a contradiction and say that it's valid and completely disregard the law of non-contradiction.
So why would you do that? Why would anybody do that? We talked briefly about this last night. Why would anyone want to have a quote valid structure but a completely invalid logical statement? It makes no sense whatsoever. In my opinion, and I believe in Aristotelian logic, you have to have both. You have to have valid structure and you have to have a valid logical argument, or it fails. So the ability for Betty to want to have a contradiction, or basically anything, including a contradiction, is ridiculous. But it does show why we are where we are in the world today, because it allows you to say anything and act like you're a logician, because it's sound, it's a valid structure. It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit.
Yes, obvious bullshit. And the people that they're putting forward to give us this, that Beddy, don't forget, Beddy is the character that they've brought into this to be the globe logician. He says he has papers published. He says he has been a teacher. So he says he's qualified in this, yet he's trying to push a contradiction in terms as a valid logical argument. Bullshitter. And it's dangerous for having people like Beddy around you. But hey, that's not us. He's not going to fool us. He's only going to be fooling people who are unaware of actual logic, unaware of the law of non-contradiction. I don't know how many anti-logic people Beddy can get on board. It's a bit of an impossible task Beddy's taken on, to try and teach logic to a load of people that hate logic. They hate that reasoning process. They hate coming to conclusions that are obviously truthful, but against their model.
Well, that's why they like Beddy, right? Because he's not really bringing them logic. He's bringing them an empty shell with no logic in it whatsoever, showing it off as, hey, look at this logic. Yeah. So they're perfectly happy with that. No wonder why they like him.
Paralogic.
Yeah.
He brings them paralogic.
Yeah, paraconsistent logic. That's what I said. I said if Beddy's studied any sort of logic at all, it's not traditional logic. It's this paraconsistent logic. And that's not going to help anybody's minds within this arena at all.
And if someone thinks that this modern logic is just development of old logic, old simple logic, no, it is just twisting old logic. This is not development. This is twisting normal logic.
Sophistry.
Yes, yes.
Sophistry, and sophistry of the worst kind, right? Because what he's doing is he's trying to get around one of the basic fundamental laws of the beginning of logic, the laws of communication.
I would say that this is not about sophistry, because sophistry was on higher level. Sophists didn't violate these first principles of reasoning, because it would be spotted at once. So I would say that this is something new and worse than sophistry, because it is too primitive to call it sophistry. This contradiction in terms. I cannot imagine that in ancient times somebody would use that kind of thing in argumentation. He would be laughed at immediately and expelled from normal society as freak.
What sort of a mind of a person thinks that they could pass this off? Like, how stupid does Beddy think we are? Who's Beddy writing this bullshit for? That's right, Beddy. Complete bullshit. I call this gaslighting, and gaslighting that'll get people into trouble. He's laying up paralogisms here. And these are like, Beddy wants to become a living shadow giant. The moment somebody else repeats this, and if somebody else imagines that this is logic and they repeat it, Beddy then becomes a living shadow giant of the globe logic scene. I don't know whether that's what he's going for, whether he could end up being a professor teaching globe logic, counter to Aristotelian logic, old ancient logic. People in Discord have learned a new logic that's gone one past the old logic. It's like they've gone past Euclid, because Euclid is entirely logical and it's based upon the laws that we talked about. There's more, but you can't have a straight line being a straight line and not a straight line. It wouldn't work. One of them is longer than the other. You can't have the same being the same if they're not the same. That's why you cannot have a contradiction. Yeah, Betty. It's gone one step too far, Betty. This is too much. You should have perhaps waited for a little bit longer. But please don't pass on this. I mean, the globe mind is struggling enough as it is. Don't start giving them extra contradictions to use as arguments. They'll just look stupid. And then that'll fall them deeper into this abyss that they're heading down.
Perhaps that's what he wants. Maybe that's his goal.
To drive people mad.
Might be. What I would say is, if you're going to give them this kind of logic, make sure they don't come around people like us who will call them out, get them to think about this as real logic, and then realize that you bullshitted them with something that's not logical at all, and either made them go mad or worse. I think that's why Bev is saying it's dangerous. That's dangerous. Now, if you've got a bunch of people that are as okay as you are with, accepting something as valid that's completely invalid, well, have at it. I guess that's fine. But make sure they don't come around here. That won't work out.
Yeah, like when I said this at the beginning to Betty, I said, like, what we're dealing with is just reality, right? Some of the stuff we talk about, yeah, it may be troubling. It may be conundrums that most people have never thought of. But actually putting contradictions into an argument and presenting it as though it is a valid argument, well, that's inciting, really.
Agreed.
And again, I don't want to be any part of it, so I will continue to say, Betty, that's bullshit, and please don't do that to people. Because the moment somebody else takes that on as your word, you become the shadow giant, and then they will be able to turn to you and say, well, Betty said, and then Betty, you're going to have to come out and justify this stuff. You can't just sit behind a text sort of in YouTube comments things if you're passing on these paralogisms that other people are going to take on. Stick it to him, Blue Marble's channel. Do a presentation on Blue Marble's channel about contradictory logic within the globe model.
And how it works just fine.
Yeah.
That way. Yeah.
How it has to be.
Yeah. I will say this, that I really hope Betty has not instructed young people on this. I really hope so. And because I'll tell you, if anybody, if I had a younger child, all my children are grown, but if I had a younger child in a secondary school or university or whatever, it wouldn't matter. And I knew that there was some, quote, logician teaching them that is a valid form of argument, I'd have a serious problem with it. Very serious problem with it. And if it was in secondary school where I had my way, I'd definitely pull them out of that school quickly. So You may want to check if any of your kids are in secondary school or university where they're getting quote logic, or they're being taught logic, that it's not this kind of logic. Because as Bev said, this kind of logic will get them into trouble, especially when they come across somebody or a group of people who really do know logic. They can go mad, literally lose their minds.
Yes. It's like telling somebody that on can be off.
Yeah. Or hot can be cold.
Yeah. If you just think it and put it into a logical argument that one thing can be something else that it's completely contradictory to. Yeah. Never mind though. Hopefully he won't. Go on.
If baby is teaching that kind of logic, I would say that would be abuse of the youth, of younglings. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to use more solid words for that, but let's keep it that would be abuse.
All for a model. I say, Betty, we're open to logic questions. We're open logical arguments, logical discussions. That's what we deal with here. Anytime you want to come round and talk about this, we can. Right, let's get back into this. Oh. Back to this. Right, so this is 11 minutes. Hopefully it won't be too much. I've got a feeling, I haven't watched it. I only watched a little bit of it and thought we'll have to bring this to you guys so we go over it live. This is a guy called Anti-Globe. He's not got many subscribers, but we give him a chance. This is his thinking, possibly his debut. Here we go.
Yes,
they're not really debates, are they? They're not real debates, anyway.
Okay.
Oh man, like you would know about debates, man. Like you of all people should not be talking about how people debate.
This is me. I've paused it. I've always said that there's been no debate. There isn't a debate. You can't consider what the channels that call themselves debate channels. You can't consider them as debate channels because they're not. I'm specifically talking about Debate Flat Earth and More and Flat Earth Debate. Those two channels, they're both associated with Flat Earth. They're not debates. That's what I was talking about. But he has a problem with me saying that they're not debates because they're not literally, they're not structured debate channels. And they never have had a debate on those channels. But I'm up for debate anybody if they want to try, like Blue Marble. If you ever want to carry on with the discussion about the level is horizontal debate, we're up for it. Anyway, here we go.
You first and foremost don't even have a position that you're taking in a debate because you've entered into the flat versus globe debate and you've claimed that you're not even a flat earther. But we all know that you are a flat earther. But the point is you're claiming that you're not. So.
Right, he said we've entered into the flat versus globe debate arena. There is no debate. There never has been a debate. And when I came in with questions because people had told me that I had done something wrong. I was the one that had the problem. So I came in to try and fix the problem. And it seems like nobody can talk about what the problem is. The problem isn't mine. I have my proofs. But this guy is upset, right? That
And again-
I've come into this fucking debate arena that I haven't.
Yeah, and again, still with the, you say you're not a flat earther, but you're obviously a flat earther, even though you say you're not a flat earther. But you shouldn't be in the debate because you shouldn't be even talking about this because you're not a flat earther,
yeah.
but you are a flat earther. It's freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, dude's making a video about me not being a flat earther, but calling me a flat earther and saying I'm in a debate arena and I shouldn't be in the debate arena. Confused minds of the globe. This is just another one of the guys.
You then can't enter into a debate where flat earthers are versing globe earthers and arguing over the shape of the earth. You have absolutely no reason to even fucking enter into any debate. Because no one would be arguing against whatever position you hold since you're not claiming anything about the shape of the earth. Why would anyone argue with you for any reason whatsoever? Unless you're implying that the whole earth is flat, then of course you would have someone arguing against that, which is what you do incessantly. But in a formal debate, you take the position opposite to the position you're arguing against, and you present all the information that you're going to provide in the debate to your opponent that you're going to be debating against. And in that way, there's no sudden gotchas or anything like that along the way. And everything is going to be discussed. The content that is produced by both sides, that's the only content that's going to be discussed in that debate. That is an actual debate to which no flat earther has ever engaged in.
Right, so he's saying there has been no debate. Again, how confused do you want to be?
And has he actually ever heard you? Because any quote debate, really not a debate, that you've ever been involved with, your claim has been level as horizontal. Nothing to do with the shape of the earth, to his point. But I don't think you've ever gone anywhere claiming that you wanted to debate anything that had to do with the shape of the earth ever.
No.
It's always been level as horizontal. And you've said, I'll come in and talk about level as horizontal. And if you want to take the opposite view of that, that's fine. Perhaps he hasn't really listened to you, or maybe he's listened and he's gotten words from his, from some other party in his head. I don't know.
I think this guy's been triggered by the argument, really. It's that logical argument that once it sets in, once it's that simple, he's just, he's fighting against it. He's even had to go to YouTube to voice his opinions. Nobody's going to listen to him in any other room. So I commend him, right? If he's got strong views like this, voice them. Everybody, you should be getting out there.
But still, I don't know if you noticed that he said that this argument you cannot. This is you cannot use it in debate because you are not flat earthers, or you are saying that you are not flat earther, but he thinks that you are flat earther. But still, if you don't belong to flat earth society, you cannot bring anti-globe arguments. That was his point. So that would be dishonest. Why not? For me, it is very, very, very good that someone is trying to debunk a globe model with that argument, which is solid, and of course it debunks globe model. But his objection was that you are not flat earther. You are claiming that you are not flat earther, then you have no right to do that, because only flat earther should do that argument, or any argument. For me, that's stupid, but he's just exercising a false dichotomy. So I think that the whole discussion between globe and flat earth is about to set up the scene between flat earth and globe earth, and no one else can interject.
I like that. You're not
That's
allowed
for
into
me.
our club.
Yes, you don't belong to that club, and therefore you have no right to bring any arguments against Globe.
That's a good
Because
observation, Paper. I like it.
Yeah, but I mean, like I say, I've only ever been in here saying that level is horizontal. And as I told Betty, it's not a flat earth argument. It's an argument from reality. The same with the horizontals being parallel. It's an argument from reality. Don't get confused and think it's flat earth, the argument, which they're obviously doing. Because they see it's against the globe model, which it isn't. All you have to do is, if level is horizontal, is reality, and is provable, you have to employ it on your model. To deny what happens in reality on the model, that would be ridiculous. Just incorporate it into your model. That's what the model is. What they've done is they've built up this idea in their own mind that the globe model isn't reality. Therefore, anybody who states anything about reality and can prove things in reality, they label as a flat earther. That's their problem, not mine. But I like the idea of you thinking it's an exclusive club. You're not part of Flat Earth Society. Therefore, you're not allowed to be in this discussion. And unfortunately, we've labelled level as being horizontal as part of our discussion within our framework. And so you can't talk about that.
I would say that Flat Earth Society and whatever they are bringing for Flat Earth, weak or non-arguments, but this argument is really good, and that's why they are triggered that you don't want to be part of this club. And that's why some time ago it was full action, great action to involve you into Flat Earth, let's say, club.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, they want to push us into the Flat Earth Club, right? But obviously the argument that we have, they don't want that argument in the arena. So it's a bit hard to label us as a flat earther, but then say you can't come in with that argument. Or, I don't know, like it's a strange logic, but as we know, it's not logic. So therefore it cannot be understood. It's just doesn't make any sense. We'll carry on. See how well he does.
You don't know what a debate is, and no flat earther knows what a fucking debate is. So I don't know why you're talking about a debate. And then you also mentioned something. I know you might have mentioned it. You might mention it here in a minute when I press play. That you talk about an argument. Now, an argument in the colloquial sense of the word is someone that is arguing against something that they perceive as being not true. The whole reason why they would feel the need to argue it.
What? Has he got a different idea of what an argument is?
Yes. Well, he did say colloquial. Yeah, sorry.
He said that this is colloquial, but he has a rather correct grasp. Yes, you are arguing against someone's argument, and you are trying to disprove or prove it wrong, the opponent's argument. And
within a debate setting, yeah?
Yes.
Right,
so I don't know why he is talking that this is not debate. Well, it is, yes.
Well, I know which argument he's talking about. He's talking about the argument. If all horizontal planes are parallel to the plane of the horizon, then all horizontals will be parallel to each other. That's the argument he's talking about. Now, that isn't a rebuttal to anybody. It's just an argument put up for discussion.
Yes, so if he considers this as not argument, I don't, maybe really he doesn't understand what argument is. I don't know.
Well, I mean, in order for it to fit his bill, somebody would have to say the horizon's curved or something like that, and then it could be used as an argument to debunk the curved horizon, right? Suppose, but it seems like what he's saying is you can't just come up with an argument. You need to be able to have somebody make a statement, then you can have the argument to debunk the statement, which I'm thinking he's getting into the argument where people shout at each other. I think that's what colloquially he's trying to portray as an argument. They want to take the argument away from the old school argument and into the new flat earth debate argument. I'm thinking circular sort of stuff. We'll see.
Is because of that. They don't think this position is true, therefore they feel the need to argue against it. It's the whole reason why Globers argue against flat earthers. They think the flat earth isn't true, so therefore they're going to argue against it. There would be no argument against it if it was the truth.
This is a confused mind.
Yeah,
this guy has been fallen into the paralogisms.
Has he not paid attention to like the last 5,000 years of humanity? I mean, so basically he's saying, look, there wouldn't be any argument for anything if what the thing is that you want to argue about was true. Really? There are people that'll argue about what color the sky is. I don't know, especially colloquially, they'll certainly argue that way. So if he thinks that there's some objective truth out there that no one will argue, well, yeah.
Yeah, and we've had arguments. Well, like I say, arguments. I don't think anybody ever comes up with any arguments. But let's say we've had discussions with Gently for hours about a straight line.
Yeah.
Now, if you can argue about a straight line, then, like, where's the truth? Is there a truth in a straight line? Oh.
Because no one is going to argue against facts. No one needs to come along like Bev here and, create statements that help people arrive at conclusions, which may be fallacious. The statements might be incorrect, which might lead you to an incorrect conclusion. But we'll get to that too. The point is, you wouldn't need arguments. All you would need is statements, measurements, definitions, that sort of thing. That's all you would need. There would be no argument. So your position is absolutely fallacious. If the earth is flat, you do not argue that it's flat. You just provide statements and measurements and shit like that. But you think that you need to provide arguments and that no one else has provided any arguments and no one else even debates, according to you and your dumbass version of logic.
Guy thinks I have it. Oh dear.
Take it up with Aristotle.
He messed up everything. So he said that only argument, only logic, formal logic or whatever. But he was talking about that no one would argue against facts. I would disagree because we had many interlocutors which were very eager to argue against facts. That's not true. And basically, yes, evidence is only evidence. It can be used in argument or not. If it is not necessary, you may not use evidence, like footage, pictures, or whatever. But if it is necessary for the argument, you have to bring also evidence. So both are important, but most important is argument itself. That's why we argue, because we bring arguments, sometimes supported by evidence and sometimes not, if not necessary. Simple. He's messing. I don't think that he understand the meaning of the words correctly.
Yeah, I would
So-
say that the argument is the basis, it's the foundation of finding a proof, i.e. truth. So in order to substantiate your truth statement, you need to put forward a valid logical argument with a truth factor that's it goes all the way through it. At the end, you end up with that truth of the argument, within the argument, to substantiate your statement. It's as though the argument is necessary. I think that's where they're missing out, right? Their colloquial use of argumentation has differed from actual argumentation into the proof structure. Don't know. He's not actually defining what he thinks an argument is he? He's just saying what he doesn't agree with when we talk about arguments, or me particularly.
Yes. He just disagrees with you, and that's all.
But good to know. This communication process, it'd be better if he could come in and then we could discuss it. And if we ever do get anybody in here, I'm hoping that we will be able to have a good discussion, no shouting or anything, and we can learn from it, because I need to understand why he's thinking like this. Obviously, he's troubled within the argument. Something about the argument has upset this guy enough for him to make a YouTube video on his phone. Arguments and stuff. So what they've changed,
I know, like Aristotle, Socrates, Plato. These people basically created the methods in which we reason and that sort of thing. But they're not actual, like, these things are not actual arguments. An argument is when two people are at odds with each other, going up against each other, and they disagree on a certain topic. That is a fucking argument.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
it is not.
No.
he's got the misunderstanding of what an argument is, right? He thinks that these flat earth debate channels where people start shouting at each other, he thinks that's an argument.
No, it is not. This is fight, argument against argument. So not necessarily shouting, but still argument versus argument. So this is fight between arguments, and that would be that. Yes.
Yeah. An argument is a statement that's put forward that causes the mind to rationalize something, to go through some sort of process, to come to a conclusion. And that conclusion is based on how good the argument is. The words are put together. It's pretty simple, and there is no shouting between people. But
And the opponent is just fighting against argument. You brought some argument, for example, horizontal being parallel to the plane of the horizon, and someone have to argue against your argument, not shouting at you and calling your names, just against your argument that this is invalid, not true, not supported by evidence. For example, something like that. That would be fight against your argument, and that would be debate.
Mhm.
Yeah, here's
But-
some. Oh, sorry, paper. Go ahead, finish.
No, I am done.
Yeah, so here's I just looked up a thesaurus for argument. Here's some words that he might be thinking argument really is. Bickering, altercation, disagreement, dispute, quarrel, squabble. Those are all things that he thinks an argument is. That's not what an argument is. That's what a modern day argument is, but not the type of argument that we're talking about or that Bev was talking about on that video he's referring to. So I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I was trying to convey. I know it's hard to convey the message of the old argument to this new modern day debate style. But yeah, I was basically just trying to hark it back to when arguments were arguments and people discussed arguments rather than shouted at each other about things.
You had proper orators and things like that. But that's
the
part
art of argumentation.
Yeah, exactly. But that's part of what we lament, that things that has been lost. We've not only lost the words, or the words have been hidden or stolen from us, if you want to take it that way. But like I read yesterday in the lost tools of learning, it's a tool that we've lost. The idea of an argument and forming an argument and presenting an argument is lost. It's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring it back. And we know it's not for everyone. We know there's not a lot of people that are interested in this old stuff. But if anybody does ever get bored of the new modern day argumentation that this guy's talking about, feel free to come over. Drop in the Discord anytime. We'll discuss real arguments. Argument into is just shouting in between different people and shouting at each other. Well, that's not actually what an argument is. An argument in the old traditional sense is a structured set of statements placed together to cause the mind.
No. See, whenever they structure these statements together, they already have the conclusion in mind. That's why they're working on the statements to get people to arrive to that conclusion. It's actually circular logic.
What?
He's
he's
not
been
having a
fed
good.
these
He's not.
paralogisms, hasn't he?
He thinks that someone who is bringing an argument should not know what he is talking about. So he is saying something and he doesn't know what his conclusion would be in his argument. That's what he said.
Yeah.
So complete nonsense. So I think that he is talking about so-called arguments between idiots who don't know what argument is and who don't know what they are talking about.
Well, we have said this about globe logic. That does actually start with the conclusion and works backwards. That is the circular reasoning. He's got confused between an actual argument and a globe logic argument. And obviously the hatred of logic leads to people with a misunderstanding of actual logic. I didn't realise this was going to be this good.
So he thinks that someone who is bringing argument has automatically circular reasoning because he knows his own conclusion of his statement.
Yeah, the conclusion of the argument is all been structured in a way that he thinks it's circular.
Yes, so this is just amazing.
In a way. And that's what he's calling an argument, by the way. He's calling circular reasoning an argument.
Where did you say that?
That's just his conclusion, right?
Yes,
he
but
wants it to be that way. Because then they
No, man,
can
we
just
call
push that
circular
forward.
arguments circular arguments.
Yeah, but he wants to be able to say to everybody that I use circular arguments. He wants any argument that he comes to the conclusion that you've come to the conclusion, right? I mean, I don't know whether you've noticed, but what I do with the argument is I state all horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon. If all horizontals are plane to, then all horizontals will be parallel to each other. I stop it there. I never finish it. So the conclusion is drawn by the person that's talking about it. So it's him coming to that conclusion himself that he thinks and wants and needs to be a circular reasoning thing, because the conclusion he comes to, he doesn't want to. It's a genius play, but only shown by a exploded globe mind. The illogicalness of what he's talking about can't be, I don't know. It's worth thinking about though, isn't it? That this man has decided he wanted to go to YouTube to say this. Welcome to the opinion expressing YouTube crowd. I hope you do well.
Yeah. You whenever you state facts, that's not an argument. You're not arguing against anyone. You're stating facts. Why would anyone disagree with that? Unless they're not true, unless you're describing something and you're lying about it, no one would disagree. Therefore, it cannot be labeled as an argument. It can only be labeled as statements or facts, measurements, that sort of thing. Like, why are you mislabeling this?
To reason a conclusion.
Agreed. Yes.
Okay. So that's what an actual argument is.
We all agree that what's an argument is a well-formed, structured.
See, Bev thinks he's so smart, but he's dumb as fuck. He's a flat earther. He thinks the Earth is flat. He's concluded the Earth is flat. So now what he's going to do is he's gonna formulate.
See, I don't know whether you just heard that. Steve McRae actually agreed with me what I was talking about with the argument, and he's just completely dismissed that with an ad hom, an untruth ad hom. I've never stated that the Earth's flat. It's not flat. It's crazy for him to come up with that as a rebuttal, to get around something that Steve McRae has literally just agreed with me about. That's bad.
Statements to get people to arrive at the conclusion the Earth is flat, where he was at from the beginning. But he thinks he's clever. All these motherfuckers think they're so clever.
Usually syllogism, you can have a syllogism, you can have formal argument, informal argument, induction, deduction. But argument is basically you're drawing a conclusion from some kind of inferences.
Okay.
No, an argument is basically whenever you invalidate someone's position that isn't true.
He's going against Steve McRae and what an argument is.
he's saying no, and he is partially admitting what you said, but only in the part. Yes, you are invalidating that something is not true. It is bad phrased, because invalidating in formal logic, it means that you spotted some formal fallacy, and being true or not true, this is part of this is evidence part of the proof. So so it is material logic against formal logic. So he's confusing. I think that he should really read something about logic and argument, because he's just terribly messing up words, terms, and meanings completely.
So that's what the argument is that I'm going to present, if that's what you're after.
We are.
I've tried to get it as simple as possible for you.
That's all you've ever presented is simple shit, dude. You're gonna act like you've talked about complicated, complex fucking problems and shit. Come on, man.
So the first argument I'll give you is based on a Euclidean proposition that states...
It's not an argument. You're gonna fucking put forth a statement. It's just a statement.
Two straight lines that are parallel to the same straight line will be parallel to each other. Right? That's a geometric proposition within Euclid.
Okay, yes.
So based on that, we go to state that horizontal lines that are parallel to the same straight line would be parallel to each other. So we can say if all horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon, then...
See, this is an assumption. That's why he has to include if.
I've heard this. Now, he's got this, obviously, from Plato Chips on Twitter. This guy has been watching what they say, and because it's laid out in an if-then statement, they're saying it's an assumption because you start it with if.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is assumption.
I know.
You always create argument with if,
Yeah.
because you are setting up condition, and you are assuming that this condition is fulfilled, and someone can argue against it, of course, in debate.
Yeah.
But still, this is your right to say that in argument. If something is that, therefore something else is that way.
Mm-hmm.
So this is argument, yes.
So yeah, he's like Plato, right? They are trying to dismiss the entire argument because it starts with an if. But an if then is a valid form of argumentation. They've completely disregarded this because somebody, Plato Chips and his mates, have convinced people that it's not a valid form of argument if you use an if. This is why paralogisms and passing them on is dangerous. Once you believe that a certain character can become the shadow giant to give you this information. This guy has trusted the wrong people. If it had come for a conversation, a discussion about it, we could have had this discussion. And he wouldn't have needed to have gone public stating his new idea of how an argument shouldn't start with an if. It's sad. And I'm glad he did. I didn't realise he went through this. Went through the argument.
all horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon. Meaning he's assuming it. He doesn't know that it's true. Otherwise, he would say, since all horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon, then, but he says if, as in, it's not conclusive that this is true. It's only like if this is a possibility, then. So he's not even like presenting an argument. He's presenting an assumption. He's assuming something. And then that's going to be his argument? How the fuck is that an argument? You're not arguing against, he's not arguing against anything. If anything, he would be arguing against the globe, the curvature thereof, with this particular argument, but he's leaving it in the realm of possibility, and he hasn't even concluded anything.
Wow,
This is
I feel
how
sorry for this
deceptive
guy.
these motherfuckers are.
He's wrong.
Yeah.
This is not about possibility. In your argument, it is necessity, not possibility.
The if part is not if it actually exists. It's saying that if it is this way, it is this way, and therefore something else has to be a certain way.
Yes. So this is statement of necessity, and to have conclusion to be true, you have to have this premise to be true, and that's why you are using if. If this premise is true, then the conclusion has to be true also, by necessity. So that's why the argument is formulated that way, and the opponent should just argue against premise that horizontals are not parallel to the plane of horizon. Simple.
That's particularly why I've called this the argument, because you can see what this particular argument has done to this guy, right? The argument, like Paper says, one follows from the other, and the conclusion is made from the statements that you make earlier. Now, when you make it this simple, then the conclusion can be made by anybody within the mind. It's the reasoning process that goes on from hearing those first two statements to come to the conclusion. And that is the thing that this guy hates. He hates the argument because he's come to the conclusion. He hates the conclusion he's come to because he has a model.
Can I give him one of his own in rebuttal? How about this? If the Earth is a spherical object, then all standing water must curve. So basically, he, in his thought process, wouldn't he mean that we can't prove the globe because he's saying if the Earth is a globe?
Well, I give him one from his own side as well. Is it if water forms a plane, then there can be no globe? It's another if then, done from a guy on his own side. It's just like I say. Once you make the argument so easy for everybody to do, and that conclusion comes naturally through a reasoning process, then that's the bit that he can't like. That's why he's so like, obviously he's heard this argument and it's stuck in his head. He had to make a video.
Definitely he should learn something about logic, basic logic, like modus ponens argument or syllogism, because he's just talking stupid, very stupid shit. Really.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's finish it off. Go.
This is how deceptive these motherfuckers are. They won't even actually offer up a real argument. And their version of an argument is an assumption, a possibility, a scenario that doesn't even exist. That's your fucking argument? How the fuck is that an argument?
All horizontals will be parallel to each other as a statement, right? A logical argument.
Well, it's
As a logical argument. If this is true, then therefore I have an argument. That's what you just presented.
Yes,
Since you
yes,
did it-
that is argument, yes.
I didn't come to the conclusion though, right? On purpose. I didn't finish it off. He is doing all of this to himself. It's logic, reasoning is rooting around in this man's head. And he's saying in his own head, this can't be true. And he's coming to some reasoning to make it not true for himself. Because the conclusion that he's coming to, he can't come to. He can't have all horizontals being parallel to each other. And this is Plato Chips from Twitter. And people like Brenda, Wally. There are others. But most of the names you've heard. There's a team of people that have to convince people that a very simple logical argument isn't actually an argument. This is what we've been doing, Paper. This is the idea of how you do this new way. You get people to expose themselves. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, this guy is just exposing his own ignorance on the topic of logic in many ways.
Yep.
So I don't say that he's totally ignorant, but nearly there.
I think he's been fed paralogisms from people, and he's, like you say, he's not fully ignorant, but of most of logic and argumentation debates, he is. He's just developed a new style, a modern day blue marble logic, blue marble debate, blue marble science sort of stuff. And that's where they've learnt all of this stuff from. It bears no relation to anything that you may think of yourself. Okay.
In such a slow pace, I don't even think anyone actually caught on to what you're doing in this moment anyway. So the first thing you have to do, Bev, if you want this to be an argument, you have to prove your statement, your assumption that horizontals are all parallel to the plane of the horizon. And instead of leaving that as an assumption, as a possibility, you have to conclude it. It has to be conclusive for you to have an argument. All horizontals have to be parallel to the plane of the horizon in order for all horizontals to all be parallel with each other. That would be your fucking argument. But you don't have an argument because you haven't proven that all horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon.
They
It
are,
is
though.
proven.
Yeah.
Yes, because it is visibly proven, because you can set up, for example, carpenter's level at the horizon, and you can
Hang on.
check.
Yeah, but hang on. At least he's acknowledging that the horizon is a plane.
No, he's
I thought
saying
that's what
it's
he was
not
gonna
been
try.
proved, but I mean it has. He's not saying the consequences of it being proved. He's just saying it can't be. Right? That's all he's got. This shows you the extent of globe argumentation. It's just coming up with a nuh-uh, and you can't say that. And it's like, yeah, we can. The argument's already there. It's out there. This is why he's making this video. Because the argument is already out. It's burrowing around in this guy's head. He can't get it out there. Madness inducing. Should come with a warning label, this argument.
I would say as advice to him that he should really read something about logic, arguments, etc., and immediately erase this film from his channel, because this is a shame.
This is globe logic. This is how you do it. Globe argumentation. This is what you've got to look forward to.
Pretty simple stuff, man.
Yeah, well, I'll take globe logic over globe science every day, any day.
Same thing.
No, we've seen what globe science is.
Yeah, globe science is built upon globe logic. Globe logic is, as you've just seen, non-existent. It's make shit up. Just say nuh-uh. And it's the same as the globe science. As in actual science. You have to have the argumentation or the proof in order to have the science. It's nothing without that initial antecedent consequent or cause and effect statement. It's absolutely necessary. And you know that this is globe science. Sorry, blue marble science. From that, we can deduce that all horizontals are parallel to each other.
Didn't you just say that?
They're all parallel.
Okay, so your
horizontals will be parallel to each other.
Oh, keep saying
as a statement, right? A logical argument.
well, it's
And from that, we can deduce.
He said all, yeah. He said therefore all horizontals will be parallel, and now he's repeating it.
All horizontals are parallel to each other. They're all parallel.
okay. So your argument is geometry.
No, the argument is that all horizontals being parallel to the plane of the horizon.
Wow.
Wow, that's it. Oh, we ended it. That's the. I guess it was a bit too much when he actually finished the argument. Thank you very much. That was great.
Strange times. I would, if I would do that, what he did, this guy, anti-globe, and I just watch my own video in total, I would erase it immediately.
Oh, it's still there. He's not took it down like Blue Marble did. And it's on this one now as well, so. But I mean, I'd still say, if you're listening, anti-glober, I don't really like anybody who's anti stuff like that. But if you want to come in and have a discussion about logic, argumentation, debate, then you're still welcome to come in and have a look, have a conversation. Let's have a discussion about this, because I think you are mistaken in quite a few different places. Yeah, he shut his video off. Who knows? He wasn't here. That was just a video that I'm guessing that when he made the video, he tagged me in it, and that's why I know about it. So I thought I'd have a quick look. That's the first time I've gone through it fully. I would have to say, though, I think now, after seeing that, the argument the most simple argument we could possibly make to link the deductive power of geometry to reality. And, you know, this arena gave us the chance to put this together. If we weren't in this arena, then I'm pretty sure that argument wouldn't have been the argument we presented first. But thankfully, I think if you were teaching people about logic and you wanted to hit it from the base, where to start from, this argument is about as simple as you could make an argument, but it's sort of the one that it does truly compel the mind to come to that conclusion, right? It is obvious from however you do it that all horizontals are parallel to each other. There's no denying it. It's just that there's a group of people with a strange model affliction that get really upset about it. I feel proud, actually, at the minute. Everybody's leaving us. It's too much, isn't it?
I don't know. This guy, for me, is perfect example of average guy who he's trying to speak, to talk about something that he has vague idea and false idea, I think, implemented by someone, because he was talking about some things that they were delivered to him, but he didn't understand what was delivered to him as supposedly his position. So it is just sad, because it means that you are forced to say stupid things, and you don't understand that you are talking stupid things, because you don't understand what you are talking about. This is such situation. For me, it would be shameful.
They're proud of it, though, right? There's a group of people who will commend this guy for making this video. They will back him, I think. I hope so, anyway. He's not got many thumbs up, and I don't know whether he's allowed to come into this arena now. Because as you see, it's hard for anybody to come into a discussion with us in argumentation and not look fucking stupid. I shouldn't laugh. Keep professional. We want to have a debate with Blue Marble, and Blue Marble likes professionalism. If you're listening, Blue, or anybody who's listening for Blue, tell him to get in touch with us about bigging up the audience. Then we can hype the level is horizontal debate. Okay. It's been a good night. Again. It's Free for All Friday tomorrow. And I know for a fact there is somebody who really wants to have a conversation on Free for All. We've been saving a lot of stuff. We've been trying to stick to argumentation, logic, trivium. I think we have done tonight. It's been a slightly bit off track Euclid night, but through argumentation and the celestial, I guess we went a bit over the Euclid and the perpendicular, north, south, east and west. Yeah. Let's get a Buster song ready. Anybody got any final words about tonight? It's a bit much to say, isn't it? Okay. Everybody come into Discord. We'll have the, I don't know, glasses off, letting your hair down. Chat about the stuff that we're not allowed to say live. All of the real good, juicy stuff. Come on into Discord. And don't forget about tomorrow. Free for All Friday. A lot of stuff to be talked about. See you then.
It is probably the single most important mathematical idea of all. The notion of proof by circle and line or ruler and compass construction means that geometry can be known about in a way that is different from knowing about physical things, and so makes geometry epistemically differentiated. Furthermore, starting from circles and lines alone and constructing a relationship using circles and lines alone makes the conclusions certain in a way that nothing else was at the time. In geometric reasoning, the argument and the conclusions were made supremely clear and evident to the senses. Indeed, the concept of proof, a mechanism that gave a warrant for claiming geometry to be perfectly and absolutely true, made geometry the very paradigm of what we mean true and certain knowledge to be. In effect, in our understanding of nature, true means true like geometry is true.
Come go with me. Open your mind. Was all I ever knew. Finding the knowledge of the real world starts with the point of which has no parts. These are the axioms of life.
True.
And I take my chances with the old ways, finding the proofs in geometry. And I don't care what all the sophists say. I find the proofs in reality. 'Cause they were right.
We call this
We know that they were right.
true. We call this proof. Like geometry is true.
Starting with circles and lines alone, constructing the nature of what's known.
We call this proof.
Conclusions are clear and the evidence seen. This 3D space works perfectly. And I'll take my chances with the old ways, finding the proofs in geometry. And I don't care what all the sophists say. I find the proofs in reality.
Geometry is true. Perfect. Absolutely.
And all around you is sinking sand. You have a place on which to stand. Foundations were already built for you.
Absolutely true.
Open your mind. And I'll take my chances with the old ways, hearing the words of what the ancients said. They say my words sound like sorcery, but there's wisdom in all honesty.
True.
Come go with me. Open your mind. Come go